Welcome to the video lecture series of electronic devices. This is lecture number 7, where you are going to study about the quantum mechanics, concepts and bonding forces. To begin with, let me tell you what you are going to study in these two topics. First, we are going to discuss about the quantum mechanics concept. What is quantum mechanics? Then the concepts being given by de Broglie. What is Heisenberg uncertainty principle? Schrödinger wave equation. Then in the next topic, which is about the bonding forces. You know the types of bonding forces in solids, but just to revise all these types of bonding forces, you have to study about the ionic bonding, covalent bonding and metallic bonding. So this is all about the today's lecture. So begin with the first topic, which is the quantum mechanics concept. You can understand the quantum mechanics concept when we will start from the classical mechanics. You know that it starts from the classical mechanics and goes up to the quantum mechanics. So what is classical mechanics? Classical mechanics has a validity for large dimension systems. That is, it very well explains the dynamics of particles with large dimensions, while it fails to explain the dynamics which involves atoms and molecules. So it is unable to deal the dynamics of small systems. It can deal the dynamics with the large systems only. In order to consider the microscopic description of physical system, the principle of quantum mechanics has been invoked. What is the principle of quantum mechanics? Quantum mechanics is the science of very small, point to be noted. It is the science of very small, and it explains the behavior of matter and its interaction with energy on the scale of atomic and subatomic particles. It means quantum mechanics has a validity with very small dimension systems. It deals with the behavior of objects at the microscopic level. So these are the properties of quantum mechanics. Why to study the quantum mechanics? Because it deals with small systems, small dimension systems of the order of microscopic level. Now let us study all the concepts being given and which is being utilized for quantum mechanics. First is de Broglie concept of matter waves. What do you understand by this, and what is de Broglie concept? In year 1924, de Broglie, it is the name of the scientist, he extended the wave particle parallelism of optics to all the fundamental entities of physics like electrons, protons, neutrons, atoms and molecules. He suggested the correspondence between the wave and particle. The correspondence between the wave and particle have been taken into the consideration, and then he defined the law, that hypothesis. See, each and every particle is having a nature. So particle nature is associated with a wave, and this is the wave nature. So here in this particular diagram, you can see the nature of particle and the nature of wave has been shown, and this is actually being correlated by the scientist named as de Broglie. According to de Broglie hypothesis, a wave packet is associated with every moving particles known as de Broglie wave. The same is being shown in this particular diagram. You can see that a wave packet and a moving particle is being represented over here. The velocity of this moving particle is represented by v. Therefore, the wavelength of the matter wave can be given as lambda is equal to h upon m into v. You know that lambda represents the wavelength, h is the Planck's constant, m represents the mass of the particle, and v is the velocity of particle. The product of m and v gives you the value of momentum. You know that the momentum is being represented by p. So accordingly, wavelength of matter wave can also be represented as lambda is equal to h upon p. There is an important point, and you must note it down, that de Broglie concept does not imply the physical existence of electron waves. Rather, we should think of a moving particle as having wave-like properties associated with it. This is a very important point, and you have to remember this. Moving ahead, what is Heisenberg uncertainty principle? This is also a very interesting question, very interesting point. In 1927, a German scientist whose name was Werner Heisenberg, he proposed a very interesting principle which is a direct consequence of dual nature of matter, and this is known as uncertainty principle. So he utilizes the property of dual nature of matter and defines a principle which is known as a uncertainty principle. Uncertainty principle is also known as Heisenberg uncertainty principle or indeterminacy principle. So these are the two alternative names of the uncertainty principle. In classical mechanics, a moving particle at any instant has a fixed position in space and a definite momentum which can be determined if the initial values are known. Therefore, wave mechanics, the particle is described in terms of wave packets, and the particle may be found anywhere within the packets. Therefore, it is impossible to know within that particular wave packet where the particle is actually and what is its exact momentum. So within that particular wave packet, it is very difficult to locate the position of a wave and to identify its particular momentum. What is its exact momentum? According to Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it is impossible to measure both the position and momentum of a particle simultaneously for any desired degree of accuracy. You have to write down all these principles word to word. So, what is Heisenberg uncertainty principle? He advised that it is impossible to measure both the position and momentum of a particle simultaneously to any desired degree of accuracy. In this diagram, you can see that a particle is being shown. So, identifying its position as well as its momentum. It's difficult to identify both at the same instant of time and by maintaining a high level of accuracy. So, delta P into delta X, it is being defined by this particular equation. Here you know that H is the Planck's constant and this delta P is the uncertainty in determining momentum, while delta X is the uncertainty in determining the position of particle. So this is how the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is being defined. And if you relate it with the in accordance with the uncertainty principle, it is not possible to specify the location or momentum of an electron in a solid at the same time. And this principle points to one of the weaknesses of a Bohr hypothesis, because he assumed that electrons could be assigned to certain orbits. So this is all about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Moving ahead, you have to study about the Schrödinger wave equation. Schrödinger wave equation you can relate from the de Broglie concept. According to de Broglie concept, moving particle is associated with wave, and if particle has wave properties, there must be a wave equation, and this wave equation is used to describe the behavior of the particle. So this is all about the Schrödinger wave equation. This particular wave equation was developed by Schrödinger. That is why it is known as a Schrödinger wave equation. Erwin Schrödinger, it is the name of the scientist who has developed Schrödinger wave equation, was even awarded the Nobel Prize for this development in year 1933. Mathematically, Schrödinger wave equation is written as del square xi plus 2m e minus w into xi upon h cut square. This is equal to 0. Here, xi is the displacement of particle known as a wave function, E is the total energy, and W is the potential energy. H cut can be written as this is equal to h upon 2 pi, and h, you know that this is the Planck's constant. So accordingly, for any particular value of h cut can be calculated. This equation is known as Schrödinger time dependent wave equation. So you have to remember this point. This is Schrödinger time dependent wave equation, and you can calculate for a free particle. So for free particle, W will be equal to 0. So just substituting a value of W is equal to 0 in the above equation, you will be getting del square xi plus 2m upon h cut square into E xi, this is equal to 0. So this is the equation for a free particle which you have calculated by substituting the value of W is equal to 0. Next topic for today's class is bonding forces. So in bonding forces, you have to study about the all types of bonding forces. You know that bonding force in material is provided by atoms, and the bonding forces between two atoms may be of two types. It may be attractive or repulsive nature. Attractive and repulsive nature. The plot of force with distance is shown in this particular diagram. So here you can see when the distance of separation between the two atoms is large. When the distance of separation between the two atoms is large, the significance force is the negative attractive force. It is the negative attractive force, and the attractive force comes from the electrostatic forces, that is Coulomb's law. And as the interatomic separation decreases, the attractive forces start to become appreciable. Therefore, repulsive forces comes into the picture. And when the distance of separation, which is R0, distance of separation, and this is being shown in this figure at this particular space, means the attractive and repulsive forces exactly balance each other. Therefore, the net force will be what? 0. You can see that the attractive force and repulsive force will balance each other, and this distance corresponds to the stable equilibrium. This is the condition of stable equilibrium. In this situation, the potential energy is minimized, so you can conclude that when the two atoms of a material are allowed to approach each other under the influence of some external force, they are drawn together until an equilibrium spacing R0 is reached. And this equilibrium spacing is known as bond length. This equilibrium spacing is known as bond length. So bond length is also an important parameter over here. Now study all the three types of bonding forces: ionic forces, covalent forces and metallic. So first is ionic bonding. In ionic bonding, atoms of one element transfers electron to the other so that both have stable configuration. You can see in this particular diagram, there are two atoms, let's say A and B. Atom A is having one electron in the transfer orbit, outermost orbit, while atom B is having 7 electrons in the outer shell. So A transfer 1 electron to the B, therefore both have the stable configuration. Because A is donating an atom, so it will be a positively charged, and B is receiving or accepting, so this will be a negative one. The concept of ionic bonding can also be understood nicely by studying the formation of NaCl molecule. What will happen in the case of NaCl molecule? You can see the orbital structure for sodium. It would be of 281, means there will be 1 electron in the outermost orbit, while in the case of the chlorine, 287 means 7 electrons will be in the outermost orbit. So what this sodium will do? This outermost 1 electron will be transferred from sodium to chlorine so that both will have a stable structure. So accordingly, this ionic molecule will form. Sodium is having positive symbol is being represented because it is donating an electron, and for chlorine because it is accepting, so minus sign is being represented over here. So there are some of the characteristics of ionic bonding. They are strong, ionic bonding are non-directional, and they have high melting and boiling points. So these are some of the characteristics of ionic bonding. Next is covalent bonding. What is covalent bonding? You have studied also in the previous lecture. Covalent bonds are formed by sharing electron pairs between the valence electrons in order to complete outer shell. Here sharing of electron pairs is being done. Examples: silicon, germanium. Here in this particular diagram you can see that a covalent bond is formed by sharing these atoms. Covalent bonding can be achieved in two ways. There are two ways to achieve the covalent bonding. If the sharing of electrons between atoms is being done of same kind, like H2, Cl2, O2, means sharing between hydrogen atoms, sharing between chlorine, sharing between oxygen. And other type of covalent bonding is when sharing is being done between atoms of different kind, means CH4 sharing is done but both the atoms are different, carbon and hydrogen. Another is the case of H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. So accordingly there are two ways the covalent bonding can be done, if whether the sharing is between the same kind of atoms or the sharing is being done in between the different kinds of atoms. How many types of covalent bonds can be formed? This is also a very interesting factor. depending upon, because you know that in the case of the covalent bond, electron pairs have been like shared. So depending upon the number of shared electron pairs, it can be classified into single covalent bond where single electron pair is being shared, double covalent bond where double electron pairs have been shared, and triple covalent bond. In this case, 3 electron pairs have been shared between the atoms. Let us see how. See the case of single bond, the case of HCl, hydrogen is having only 1 electron, chlorine is having 7. So hydrogen, 1 electron of hydrogen and like this will be shared, a single. Then it is a type of single bond. In case of double bonds, here you can see the example is being taken for CO2 module. See, 2 electron pairs have been shared between the atoms. So this is the case of double bond. In case of triple bond, you can see here nitrogen molecule have been shown. Nitrogen is having 5 electrons in the outermost orbit, and here you can see if you are taking similar kind of nitrogen atom, 3 electron pairs have been shared. That is why this is the case of triple bond. So accordingly, in the case of covalent bonds, single pairing, double pairing and triple pairing can be done. There are some of the characteristics of the covalent bonding as well. Covalent bonds are very strong in comparison to other. Covalent bonds have saturation properties, and due to the bond formation here, dipole moment also arises. So these are some of the basic properties of the covalent bonding. Next is metallic bonding. What is metallic bonding? In metallic bonding, the valence electrons are not bound. This is very important point. Valence electrons are not bound to the individual atoms or pairs, but they move freely throughout the metal. So here the valence electrons are moving freely in the whole metal. Here electrons belong to the metal as a whole, not for the individual. And this bond exists between electrons and positive charge ions. You can see in this particular diagram. See here, these red one have been shown for the electrons. So these electrons are moving and they are free and they are moving in throughout the entire metal. And this particular metallic bonding exists between these electrons and metal ions, and these metal ions are positively charged. So this is the case of metallic bonding. Now let me summarize you what you have studied in today's lecture. You have studied about the quantum mechanics concept, where I have told you about the classical mechanics as well. Then you have studied about the de Broglie concept, and you learn how to write down the equation of de Broglie wavelength. That is being written by lambda is equal to h upon m into v. Next, you have studied the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and related equation. Then Schrodinger wave equation, which is the time dependent, and even for a free particle you have also derived it. You have studied about the various types of bonding forces in today's lecture. The various types of bonding forces means for about ionic bonding, covalent bonding and metallic bonding, and their characteristics as well. Even in the case of covalent bonding, you have studied all the 3 types of bonds which have been formed by sharing of electrons, whether there is a sharing of single pair, double pair or triple pair. So you have studied all these topics in detail. Topics for the next class is energy bands in solids and EK diagram. EK diagram, which is the energy wave vector diagram. Thank you so much for today's lecture.